Tuesday, our little acronym for the OneRing.net. And Torn Tuesday is a very special little show in our corner of the geek universe here in the heart of Hollywood at Meltdown Comics, which is the host to, as they used to say on the Benny Hill Show, host to your favorite stars. They used to always announce the Benny Hill Show.
Right.
The opening title sequence, you'd hear this British announcer, of course, British, with that funny, like, little tinny voice that he had. And he would say, "It's the Benny Hill Show. Host to your favorite stars." And he never had Barbra Streisand or any big stars on his show.
But Benny Hill used to actually phone my mum and want her to be on his show. And they used to film it quite a bit at my school. Yeah.
He's brilliant.
He was brilliant, yeah.
He was brilliant. They used to say, and I'm going to borrow the words of a better writer than myself, someone actually wrote about Mr. Hill and said that he made television his toy box.
Oh, yeah.
So Torn Tuesday is here live every Tuesday, and it's 5 o'clock Pacific time here in the great, beautiful city of LA. And we are joined by a very special fellow, a fellow fine-feathered friend of mine and yours, a fellow fantasist.
Absolutely.
Who knows a few things about building legends and legendary worlds, and he's also been very successfully dabbling with his production, with his publishing company, Stranger Comics. He's been dabbling in quite a few titles, even some children's lit that has just set the world on fire. Great stuff from Sebastian A. Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it. Put your hands together. Put your hands together.
Thank you.
Sebastian A. Jones.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, it's been a busy year. How have you been?
Mischievous.
Yeah.
I've been quite mischievous. I'm safe and sound.
Good.
And I'm really glad to say that in the face of what we would have to spend at least a moment, and in my enthusiasm to having Seb back on the show, and all the great things we're going to talk about today, a lot of beautiful artwork and a lot of connections to J.R.R. Tolkien and the way we appreciate fantasy world building, because we always talk in this context of world building and mythology building, because Tolkien was at that level. He wasn't just slapdash with his material. Anyway, he was very serious-minded, and we're going to talk to this gentleman about how serious-minded he is about fantasy world building, but we're also going to say a moment of prayer, a moment of perhaps silence, a moment of gratitude that we are alive and safe with our loved ones as we consider what happened in Beirut and in Paris and in the other places around the world.
Nigeria.
Yeah, in Nigeria especially, and the plane that went down, the Russian plane. As things get more difficult in this world, and we face a moral dilemma of how we handle ourselves in the face of this threat, you just have to stop for a moment and reflect on how grateful you are that you're safe. You're here. You're enjoying yourself. And a wonderful show we're going to have with our friends today. And my heart reaches out to everybody who has been suffering lately. And do you think that Gandalf's wisdom should play a card here? Because Frodo said to him very dryly, he said, "I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened."
Right.
And this conversation between the two characters became a salvo of optimism when the terrorist attacks on New York City happened on September 11th. And the two towers of the World Trade Center fell. And there were posters that New Line Cinema put out featuring Frodo and Gandalf having this conversation. And Gandalf replies with great wisdom. He says, "So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide.
Right.
All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." And that makes me reflect on Captain Picard, who had a conversation with Malcolm McDowell on the Enterprise, and McDowell says to him, he says, "Time is the fire in which we burn." Remember that? Remember that line?
I don't, but
from,
I'm not going to forget it now.
From Star Trek Generations. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great... Malcolm McDowell delivers. He's brilliant. But, we only have this brief time in our lives, and here we are together. Let's have a wonderful Torn Tuesday. Sebastian A. Jones. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and apparently we have a couple of guys here, and they're saying we're looking a little hologram-like.
Are we looking? Are we a little...
His hat is green.
Oh, that's gonna...
And the audio is a little buggy.
The audio is a little buggy, and my hat is giving me a little bit of an effect because my hat has green in it. Let's get rid of the hat. That way it doesn't interfere with the hobbit hole, the environment of Bilbo Baggins and the Baggins family. bequeathed later on to Frodo Baggins. We have the live chat here. We have a live interactive show. It is live. Come and join us. We have a hotline. The hotline is right there on the lower third of the screen. Remind me again of the area code.
530.
I knew it was 530. Area code 530, number 6, number 4, FRODO. That's our hotline. Send us a message, call and join us. We have a chat, live chat going on right now. And as always, you can interact and make this show go in a whole nother direction than we thought that it might go. But we're going to get the audio fixed. We're going to get the green screen working smoothly and perfectly.
You look sharp now.
Thank you, I do. Well, I think the beautiful piercing green of your eyes might also fool the camera. It might look like your eyes moving around, and within that colored iris, there might be shades of Bagan. Ladies and gentlemen, it's always like this. Anything can happen. Yeah, please join us, and we're glad to have your input. How have you been since the crazy kamikaze event?
Yeah, good. Super busy. We had a great launch party for Naobi, She Is Life, our comic book that came out on November the 4th.
Yes.
And came out to a lot of fanfare involvement.
You were right out there on the west side.
Yeah.
You had a good DJ?
Yeah, it was a great DJ. Shout out to Al Jackson. Thank you very much. Great party.
I heard about this party. I missed it.
The Hit and Run crew came. They did their T-shirts live and direct, and had henna going on, and just a really great enthusiasm for our little elven walker, if you will, of
she
our
is.
world. Yeah.
Naobi, She Is Life.
Yep.
Penned by none other than the very multi-talented Amandla Stenberg, whom many of you fell in love with in the first Hunger Games movie, which is about to complete its story cycle.
It is. Yeah, I just saw the snapshots of her at the premiere, and people posting pictures comparing how she was as a kid.
Yeah, Rue's all grown up.
She's all grown up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm lucky enough to write with her in the Naobi, She Is Life comic.
Mm-hmm.
And we have amazing talented artist named Ashley A. Woods, another amazing lady.
Didn't I meet her?
You did?
I did. I met her at the Kamikaze.
Yeah.
We were at downtown Los Angeles at Stan Lee's and Elvira's Kamikaze event in its 4th or 5th year, I'm not sure. And the event gets bigger and bigger.
It's grown.
You guys put on a show there, didn't you?
Yeah,
you did good.
Well. It went very well. People seem to like it.
Yeah.
I remember the first one that they did. It was very small and charming, and now it's chaos. It's it's big Comic-Con chaos. But it was great. A great event, great turnout. And the response has just been phenomenal. We did a series of conventions recently. We started in Portland, went to Baltimore, went to New York, came back here, and Amandla did New York and Kamikaze. And the feeding frenzy for Naobi was crazy, because finally you have an elven girl as the face of your franchise, and someone of color, and it just doesn't really happen. So that, combined with Ashley and Amanda's involvement, and Daryl May, who is our amazing art director, does all the layouts and concept art, and he did that for the Untamed as well.
That's right. So he's also connected to the Untamed.
Yeah. Yes. So Daryl's been helping me build this world for 15 years, and without him, none of this would be possible. So thank you, Daryl. So he lays out and does the concepts for the Untamed, bounces to Dusu, which will be coming out next year. More tie-ins.
When you're talking about a very rigorous response to Naobi, She Is Life, you're not kidding.
Yeah.
We're talking distributors not being able to get it in stores because pre-orders are going fast.
Yep.
Everybody has gotten their hands on this.
I spoke to the Meltdown guys, and they said they sold out.
They sold out.
Yeah.
They get them in just a few copies, and bam, they're gone.
Yeah, it's been great.
That spells for some of it. Would you call it a soft launch? How would you call this, like rolling out? This title.
It's interesting because we are a independent comic company. Not many people know who we are yet.
That's about to change, ladies and gentlemen.
It started to. I think there was and you can't blame a store for having a little bit of trepidation, because there's only so much store space, so they want to cram with comics they know that will sell.
Yeah.
And when Naobi hit, it was announced in Huffington Post, and it went to People Magazine, Teen Vogue, my mum's local newspaper back in England. I mean,
that's beautiful.
It was just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think because fantasy is a fairly underserved market in the comic medium, B, women or girls being the face of franchises doesn't happen.
Yes.
And people of color also. So you combine all that together, and with Amandla Stenberg's involvement, and not only her involvement, her real creative juices flowing, and all the mainstream press, all of a sudden you had first-time buyers going, I've never bought a comic book in my life before, but because it's Amanda, or because it's a girl, or because it's fancy, because it's this, that, and the other, I'll buy it, I'll support it. And it kind of exploded.
Yeah, it is, and it's continuing to explode.
It is.
This is a phenomenon that is actually happening right now under our noses, folks. And in the comics publishing world, it is a fascinating narrative. So I want you guys to pay close attention. It's really interesting. To go up against, whether perceived or real, to go up against gender bias and race bias at the same time in launching a fantasy franchise. Okay?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, even as much as we love Daenerys Targaryen, she's still white. She's still very Eurocentric as a character, okay?
She's fairly pale.
And what most of us Tolkien fans are used to is Professor Tolkien's very specific, Anglo-centric and Northern European-centric point of view.
Yes.
So that's where his stance is on what kind of races populate his world. But when you're talking about in the comics world, to go up against a fantasy bias and a gender bias and a race bias all at the same time, that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And here you are succeeding. HuffPost, of course, they would get you prime column inches.
Yeah, they really did.
That's fantastic.
And then it spilled over to MTV,
to
the Source Hip Hop magazine, to In Style just did a piece on us. People's done a couple of pieces on us. Amanda went on MSNBC Live. So the response has been very, it's very polarizing. We live in a very polarizing time where people's opinions and perceptions, they're the keyboard warriors. You really see where people's true instincts and desires, where their hearts really are. And so we've got a lot of backlash, but that's been kind of dwarfed, pardon the pun, by literally the enormous support. Like, finally people can see themselves represented. And my world is very big. I spent 25 years baking this world, so there are the European parts, the African parts, the Indian parts, the Asian parts, and so on and so forth. And I think when I grew up, being a mixed kid in the boarding house, I read The Hobbit, and then I read The Lord of the Rings. It was the perfect escapism for some of the more gruesome aspects of growing up a little bit in the boarding house. And but I was always like, well, why are the guys from Umbar the bad guys? Why do they have to be why are the brown folk bad? And and so
anybody who's slightly more than a shade of beige ends up being a bad guy.
Right. And
to any outward slight look at Middle Earth, that's what you might think.
That's as a kid growing up. That's so being so conflicted and so immersed in this world and wanting to create my own worlds, it became a lot more kind of my world's a very kind of culturally diverse world with rich in cultures and traditions. I have Hudafang, which is the Scandinavian region, Frivana, which is another part of Europe, and Ujoa is my other place. Africa is Ungerland. Just Zalador is more Middle East. Just the whole thing is very, very big. So there's something kind of for everybody, and it's not one of these. Oh, let's please everyone for the sake of it. It's
right.
It's got gravitas and honesty to it.
Indeed it does. How much longer do you predict at the retail level people will be able to get Naobi She Is Life, issue number 1, easily before you actually stop and say, it's OOP, kids. Out of print. No dogs allowed. Sorry, but when are you going to run out? When are you going to stop and say we're moving on?
Wow, it's interesting. We have some friends over at Midtown Comics. So if you guys want to order online, go to Midtown Comics, and they have a reordered. They sold out and reordered because I think nowadays with first-time buyers, they're not necessarily have the knowledge to go into a comic shop or pick up the phone and order in and so on. First-time buyers just are used to going on Amazon.
Yes.
So where is that link? So it'll be on Midtown Comics. You can buy this first issue. There is Naobi standing over a half-orc boy. And this is done by Ashley A. Woods. And then we'll also be selling our own limited edition variant covers.
Oh, these variant covers are so awesome.
Yeah, these are done by Hyung Taek Nam, who is the one of the main concept designers for the video game The Last of Us.
Mhm.
And if you remember the Sean Bean prints,
Yes, I do.
he also did those as well. So you can get these. You'll be able to get these at strangercomics.com.
Mhm.
Probably in a couple of days. I'm going to be having these up on the store, signed versions, and I mean, people are selling them now on eBay. It's kind of crazy.
That's telling you something else, that the
Yeah.
secondary market is starting to go
It's out of control.
these.
Yeah, people came by the booths and you know and
Really?
bought a bunch, and we had them signed there. Some of them go for $100 already on eBay. It's kind of crazy. And that comic.
Yep. That very item that you were just looking at, $100 signed
Yeah, it's a little.
by Amandla,
By Amandla, the team. Yeah.
the team, and the team as well.
Yeah. So the response is fantastic. And then the Untamed, which I bought.
I'm so impressed.
What
This
are
is
these
so great for an
books?
independent publisher to be rocking and rolling like this. I'm so impressed.
So there's our hero. This is the character Sean Bean will play in the TV show, which we can talk about. There's the hand of the devil holding him, and there is Hyung's wonderful ferryman image, same
Wow.
artist, of the stranger coming out of purgatory. But the Untamed, this has Naobi's first appearance.
Mm-hmm,
So
yes.
people are this is suddenly flying off the shelves too, because people are clamoring to get Naobi's first appearance,
Yes.
and this is her
first
redemption
appearance.
story.
Fantastic. Not her origin story, but her
Is
redemption
everything
story.
in the Stranger Comics library in the same universe?
No, it's all the same universe.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, the Naobi and the Untamed, same universe.
Two-
We have about 4 new comic titles, or 5 coming out next year, all in the same universe. So if you're a hardcore fantasy fan, if you're a Tolkien fan, and you've never felt like you've been served in the comic medium,
Yes.
fantasy,
Yes.
then just click on strangercomics.com and check out the Untamed and check out Naobi, and due soon next year in Erethune, which is this amazing tale set in Hurtfang in Shagbagenhem, about a dwarf with a cursed axe who returns home upon pain of death to be rid of it, and is that Niobe's also in it? She's older in it.
That's so great.
It's,
Okay.
yeah.
Having now established to our fans, to our audience, and to any welcome strangers, welcome to our table, welcome to our little hobbit hole, where creature comforts are numerous and expected. Let me just say, mythology building,
Yeah.
or world building, as you know, modern writers of speculative fiction have come to call it.
Right.
You have to, and you have said there's been more than 2.5 decades of thought and effort put into this world
Yes.
that you've built. 2 existing titles, right now,
Mm-hmm.
connected to this universe, and
Yes.
4 or 5 more coming.
Yes.
So this is really the nascent, from a publishing point of view, the nascent, very beautiful opening up, the very first bloom,
Yes.
the very beginning of everybody getting access to this universe that you've worked on for so long.
Yeah.
And in the immortal words of Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, a beginning is a very delicate time. It is a beginning for collectors. It is a
Yes.
beginning for your readership to be
Yeah.
established.
Yep.
It's a beginning for your company
Yeah.
to start building its brand
Yes.
and building that other type of relationship with the audience that you know is there.
Yes.
How do you feel about all this? Because it's such a wonderful place to be.
It's exciting. I
yeah.
mean, it's a little overwhelming. It's very exciting, you know, for being in the lab for such a long time, and you know,
Yeah.
you finally kind of peer out of the hobbit hole, you know, and take that adventure.
We are in a fishbowl, by the way. There's constant. We're gesturing and saying hello to the owners of Meltdown Comics and various guests and stars who are walking by, shopping for comics. Don't let me interrupt.
All right, Brad.
Because I will.
Tom, right.
Yeah. Tom, Brand. Yeah. No, we're in Hobbiton. We're not in Meltdown Comics at all anymore. Transportation complete. All right. Back to our thoughts.
Yeah, no, you know, it's funny. I was just speaking to chaps out there that, you know, finally having your work, torn apart or celebrated, opinions running rampant.
You wouldn't want to please everybody, would you?
Never. No, I think that's. It reminds me of when the old DJs that now still DJ, yet they want to please everyone in the club. Oh, I play a bit of reggae, play a bit of hip hop, a bit of rock. I don't want to go there.
Go for it. We don't mind the occasional
Okay, I
surly sailor talk.
You know, I'm from England, so for me, you dictate your audience. This is my audience, and starting Stranger Comics, I knew it would be, as much as I'm a superhero fan as well, why compete with Marvel or DC, even as nostalgic as I am, wanting to create my own superhero comics and maybe down the line. A kid with $10 in his pocket or a grown-up, they're going to spend their hard-earned money on something that they're used to, something they're familiar with. And if they're going to take a chance outside of Spider-Man, Batman, or whatever, it's got to be something I feel original in a lot of ways. It's narrative, it's storytelling, it's brand. The aesthetic that we want to create is wholly original in some areas, and yet just enough accents of familiarity. So if you are familiar with the fantasy worlds, you will find familiar aspects in our books. There are elves, there are dwarves.
Familiar tropes of fantasy stories.
Exactly. Yeah, and princesses. Yeah, our princess is Naobi, and she's not there to be saved. She's there to do the saving and do the kicking ass and so on. So yeah, that's been amazing to get those kind of that kind of visceral response, like literally people picking up our books and screaming finally, and it's been fantastic.
Yes.
And making sure that all of a sudden we as a young company can start to facilitate
Indeed.
the audience that's now clamoring and screaming, where's my stuff? I need.
Brings new challenges.
It does. I need more. And I'm like, more is coming. It's just give me till Tuesday.
Give me till Tuesday. I love that band. Voices carry. Question from the internal audience
As
here.
you're describing Naobi, I'm like, Naobi sounds like what we thought Toriel might be. Ass-kicking, doesn't mean saving heroes.
And it's pronounced Niobe, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So compare them.
A Niobe comparison to Evangeline Lilly's Tauriel, as if fantasy now has a de rigueur, strong female athletic woman who's going to be an ass kicker. We have to have a tank.
Yes.
Usually female characters used to all be healers. Now it's more de rigueur, I think, for female characters to be tanks.
Right.
And to be to the point of battle, the battlefront female.
Yeah, I think she was great. The character was amazing in the Hobbit. I love the. It's very funny watching you.
It is watching us on a 10-second delay. Yeah, it's very funny.
I thought she was fantastic. The difference is Niobe. The introduction to Niobe is planting. We're planting seeds for an audience member to peel back the layers and discover her as she discovers herself, and as she tries, like most young people, tries to run away from their adulthood, from their destiny, from their calling. Very Aragorn, I guess, in that respect.
Yes.
And we see her as a in our comics, The Untamed and Naobi, we see her as a teenager. So when I started, Niobe's been in my heart for 25 years, so I've kind of grown up. Kind of as a kid, she was my imaginative crush. It's this. So as I got older and I started to write Naobi more and more, it became apparent to me, for her core first story, I needed her, especially if I was going to introduce the Luke Skywalker, the Aragorn of this universe. It was imperative to work with somebody of a like mind. So when I started writing with Amandla, it really helped out enormously to get her perspective as a teenager as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I actually don't know if there are too many comparisons other than they both kick butt and they have pointy ears.
Well, then our studio audience has left the room while we tried to answer him. That was futile. Thank you, but well said. Very well said, sir. The idea of having a strong, very very strong female in your pop culture story.
Yeah.
For me, as a child, started with Linda Carter,
right,
as Wonder Woman,
sure, yeah,
twirling around in the room, losing her secretary glasses and her pent-up hair,
right,
and just all of a sudden getting into drag instantly. It was like an instant makeover. It was the coolest thing. And so for me, I recognized that, and it was so appealing. The fact that she was a tank.
Yeah.
That Wonder Woman was alpha male
Yes.
in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she was so determined to
Yeah.
kick ass, but
Yeah.
she was also determined to be fabulous
Right.
and have a superior sense of fun. Like,
Yeah, no, that was
I'm wearing the Star Spangled Banner.
I
It's-
tell you that.
you know,
go
she-
back and watch it now. It's pretty campy
the
stuff.
camp. I
Yeah,
grew
it's a
up
lot of fun.
making an association of camp and
Yeah.
that kind of flavor,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
pop culture flavor of
Yeah.
camp with a strong female lead.
Right.
You know, now we have. Then in the 80s, not so long after the 70s, after the Wonder Woman phase, then it was the Sigourney Weaver phase.
Oh yeah.
There was your
you go.
strong,
Yeah.
very strong female
the lady
lead
in,
all the Alien
The
franchise.
Terminator.
Yeah,
as well.
yes, they had Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton.
Yeah, quickly on the heels of Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
I can trace the dots in pop culture to the strongest females because Princess Leia was not one of them. She was not as strong as the male characters in the story.
Wasn't
She
the
just
face
wasn't.
and wasn't the face of the franchise.
She
I mean,
wasn't.
Those two gals and those two
Yeah.
movies were definitely the protagonists.
Well, no, not to say that Leia was not strong, but she wasn't going into battle like Eowyn.
Right.
Eowyn went into
That's true.
the reverse of Linda Carter.
Right.
Eowyn went into man-drag
Yes,
mode
yes,
to
Mulan
get
style.
that so Mulan. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the Mulan. So I am so intrigued now because now I'm 46 and it's 2015 and we're looking at another generation of these teenagers and especially female teenagers who are absorbing and buying everything in the fantasy and sci-fi world they can.
Right.
And they're looking at Naobi
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
as this gateway character
Yeah.
for strong female lead.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Thank you.
I just-
and I didn't want to compromise her cultural roots as well within. She is half elven, she is half human, she is culturally mixed, she is racially mixed.
And why can't an elf be culturally mixed?
Absolutely.
Why can't Tuvok be a Vulcan and still be black?
Right,
Right?
right.
Right. I
But
love
see,
Tim
that's-
Russ. He's a
see-
friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, he plays
See,
Tuvok.
That was part of the thing when I would read some novels, a lot of fancy novels when I grew up, and I always felt like, why are the elves in one forest? And we go, all right, we're off to see the elves now. Oh, it's a day's ride. Hello, elves. How many? Oh, yeah, you're in the forest. All right, back. And you could tell it was just a lot of novel writers who had been inspired by Professor Tolkien
Yeah.
and wanted to have elves.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, what to do with them? Well, stick them in this place. Well, I thought that was a bit narrow-minded in perspective, and again, sticking very, Anglo. That in my world, there are 4 different types of elves. We have Mordecai Silver Elves, we have the Galamren Nomadic Wild Elves, we have the Selvenu Wood Elves, and the Quellian High Elves. And each one of those live within the different continents. So you can be a Quellian High Elf in Hurfang in your Pale, and you can be a Quellian High Elf.
Hurfang.
Hurfang,
Quellian,
yes.
Sylvan,
Yes, you can be
and
in all those areas.
a lot like Tolkien's Sylvan elves.
Yes,
But the
yes.
word Sylvan is just a wonderful,
It is.
rich, colorful word.
So-
Sylvan meaning of the forest.
So ours is Selvanu, and then Galamren is the wild nomadic elves.
Yes, the
And
nomads.
The nomads.
Like the Dothraki elves, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
ooh.
can have the Galamren nomadic people. If they're in Hurfang, they're probably like Eskimos. If they're in Western Ujoa, they're probably like Zulus. So those are more of the the opportunities that I try to throw into the world and mix it all up. So everybody can be represented and have someone to
Yeah.
go, that I can see myself as that. And as a gamer growing up, I want to be a paladin. Well, a paladin must look Germanic. Well, that's kind of crappy. I want to be a paladin, and maybe I want to put wear a wrap and have a turban on. I mean, that's kind of, where can I associate myself? So that's the kind of the world building that I wanted to do.
You have so many details, so I just barely scratched the surface of the strata of different elven ethnotypes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now, when you and Amandla would sit down and write together, did
Yeah.
you have a quote-unquote Bible prepared for her? Did you have a
Yes,
a big reference of, here's all my research, here's all my world building,
Yeah, we did. It was great with Amanda. What we did was
the ultimate reference guide?
we gave her a lot of concept art that Daryl had done, that other artists, Hyung had done, Sheldon had done, and she could see. I mean, obviously in Peter Bergting in the Untamed, she could see the the first kind of introduction to Naobi, that she, you know, started off in the Untamed as an orphan, not knowing her destiny, and her hair, she has dreadlocks and feathers, and very accents to some of her cultural past, without fully knowing who she is. So we had all these things for her to, and the off-coloured eyes, which are actually from her European heritage. It's from her father, the king of the European continent, and because she has inherited his eyes, she's also marked because of it.
Oh, really?
And there's a lot that you discover that she has been hunted by him and the devil, and it's always one step behind, and her destiny and her future is always one step ahead. So it's this real trial by fire for her.
That's fascinating. That is so So, well, by the time certain fantasy franchises get bigger, larger, and start to employ other writers and other people to share the whole thing, at that point, for example, if you're a writer for Star Trek, you're not going to work unless they hand you the Bible, the whole TV series, and you have to obey every law within that, because like in any good speculative fiction, you can create your own rules for your own world as long as you stick with them. And your own secondary world, as Professor Tolkien created this term, I may be wrong, but I think Tolkien coined the phrase secondary world when talking about what he created with Middle Earth.
Right.
And this came from a very profoundly Catholic perspective that the professor had, thinking that the greatest way that he could show glory, show appreciation to God for his creation, the primary world, was for him to be a sub-creator. And that's what the capital S, capital C, a sub-creator who takes on the intellectual, rigorous responsibility of the secondary world, and that is, and the more complete you make it and the more watertight it is with its rules and gravity and systems, then it becomes a celebration of the greater primary world, and that's your ode to the divine, or your tip of the hat to what the divine is able to do, according to Tolkien's belief system. So how far away do you think you are?
Oh, it's still very far.
To having your world codified into a nice big
it's funny is
book.
I mean, I play a lot of tabletop role playing. I did a lot of live action role playing, running around in my mum's bathrobe with a rubber sword. Thanks, Mum. And and in that, myself with a bunch of great guys, we didn't game in Middle Earth or Forgotten Realms until when we were super young, yes, but then it was in this world, and when I created the world, I wanted it to be as big as Earth. So again, like those novels, it wasn't, well, when I saw the elves, now what? I needed to enjoy every week's game by exploring this world.
Right.
So it became more and more like, oh, the guy's coming over for a game. What's I need to develop this town or this city. What's the population? What's the geology there? What is the geography there? And then Daryl, my art director and now chief creative officer, he has an anthropology major, so he brought checks and balances to the world. The airflow, the climate control. There are reasons why the apparel that the guys wear in the various regions, they wear them. It's not, oh, it looks cool on a poster. It's they wear them because of the climate. So it started to lend us a real honesty to each world within the world. I teach a little bit in Sweden about this stuff, world building and story writing and so on. And where do you start? Do you start with building the entire universe? Do you start with building your protagonist, your main hero? Do you start building towns or groups within the towns? And the answer is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah. So I'm still a long way off, thank goodness. It's lots to explore, and I have a new book for the first time. I work with this writer named Hannibal Taboo. He writes.
What a cool name, Hannibal Taboo.
Great name.
That's a
great
great
guy.
name.
He writes for Comic Book Resources. He's one of the critics.
Yeah.
Critics there, and he's writing the first novella prose within the world. So he has to come and make sure that it's, all the checks and balances go. If you want to check out his book, it's Wasso, Will to Power, and his new one, Wasso, Gathering Wind, comes out December 8th.
How do you spell Wasso?
W-A-S-O.
W-A-S-O.
And that follows on the heels of Dusu, Path of the Ancient, a comic which you can pick up online, and the printed copies will be coming out in February. And that's actually Naobi's tribe. She just doesn't know it yet. So it's a whole nother story within.
What is the name? Remind me again, please. What is the name of your secondary world?
The name of the world is Asunda.
Asunda. That's right. That's right. Well, you've come on our show previously,
yes.
Of which I'm also very grateful. You've come on our show and we've talked about the world of Asunda and the Untamed, and the very exciting bit of news that the Untamed has, and you can say this with specificity now.
Yes, absolutely.
The Untamed has a certain Sean Bean, who is our very own Boromir, son of Gondor, attached.
Yes,
Tell us about what's next.
We do, and Ellen Design, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, Ellen. Hi, everybody.
Hello, Ellen.
I'm going to say hello to Erovandi and to Sarah and Emily. Hey, well, our usual wonderful group of friends and fans are here on the live Tuesday show.
Hey, guys. So Sean Bean it is attached to our animated TV show based on the graphic novel The Untamed. And it's great because the story is about a bad man who's stuck in purgatory. And as we know, Sean tends to die in quite a few things, so we get to say Sean Bean is back from the dead in The Untamed.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
So it's, so he's already dead in the prologue. You don't have to worry. He starts off dead,
right.
and then we can just, he's undead. And so he signed on, and you can even see, I'm sure when Justin pops in, I'll give you guys a link to the animated trailer. We did an animatic trailer. It's kind of a rough sketch, if you will, of the show that it will be.
Yeah.
And you can hear Sean speak. His opening line is, "I was a dead man," so that's perfect. And we worked with...
Can we see this opening, this gatefold that you had showed me with him
sure,
in the boat from Purgatory?
Yeah,
I want to put that right up close to the camera, because I saw there was a commercial that interrupted the broadcast, but that happens. I want to see if you guys can see this. This is so fantastic. Who's the artist who did this again?
That's Untamed Nam, and he also did the Naobi image that you see behind, Naobi on the rock, with the Isu fly in her hand. Untamed Nam is one of the lead designers for the video game The Last of Us, and he's been working with us for 11 years now.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you know what, also, I can even show you.
Oh, yeah, please do.
We have, in the back here, there he is. There's a couple of...
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
There is Sean as the stranger, a couple of images.
Sean Bean as the stranger, and I want to make sure that there may be some color conflict, but maybe not. Doesn't this look fantastic, guys? That very recognizable.
Yeah.
Very recognizable.
So
facial hair. He looks so Boromir in that
he
picture.
does. He does.
I love it.
It's fantastic. Yeah, Young is amazing at capturing people's.
Yes, good. See, thank you guys. See,
when-
that looks amazing. So
Thank you.
we're not seeing it on this screen, but you guys are definitely seeing it. So that's very good.
Yeah, and then the goal is to sign Amandla, and
Mhm.
she will be voicing Naobi. So we have this powerhouse team behind the show, and the guys Film Roman, the animation studio, they did work on The Simpsons.
They did indeed. Film Roman have actually worked on lots and lots and lots and lots of
stuff.
things.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah. I am. Their offices used to be not so far down the road here. The Film
Okay.
Roman offices. There's another animation studio that you guys may know did Rugrats, which was very popular back in the 90s, and they were Klasky Supo, and they were their shows were on Nickelodeon on the Nick Network. And are you going for Adult Swim? Are you going for Netflix?
That
Are
would
you
be the
going
goal.
for a limited release?
That was a good miss.
Sorry about that. Nobody saw that because of the green screen. Nobody saw that because of the green screen.
I'm hoping for Netflix.
Yes.
That would be my goal.
Excellent.
Complete creative control. That would be the win. And then we have Tom Coker did the.
But that would require doing all episodes in one season, all up front. all at once.
That would be-
Not having the other delayed production schedule where you could do it later.
Yes, that would be the dream. So we'll see, you know, and hopefully with Amandla's involvement too, it'll just you know, the legend of the Untamed will continue to grow.
This is exciting times for Stranger Comics.
It is. It really is. And I'm honestly really excited for you guys to see the comics that are coming out next year, because
Oh, wow. Wow.
you know, with the Untamed, it really is that story of that. In that introduction, it is our Hobbit, if you will, that leads you into the world. And I was very inspired by Sergio Leone and Akira Kurosawa in their style of narrative and storytelling, very cinematic. So that's I guess the mood of the Untamed. If you're into classic cinema, patient storytelling, and beautiful art by Peter Bergting and Darryl and the guys, then that's again, not wanting to compete with Marvel superheroes, not wanting to compete with Tolkien, or Game of Thrones, which when I was creating, I didn't even know about it, to be honest, at the time.
Right.
Bring my own sense of self, my own inspirations to this world, and bake very gritty kind of moral challenging questions to the reader that the protagonists continue to question themselves on. So it's not so much and don't get me wrong, obviously major moral conflicts constantly with Lord of the Rings, but bring it a bit more closer to home. Would you damn your family to save the child or the world? Would you dealing with your own sin, your own moralities, your own sense of self? And I'm hoping that people that read my books, even if you're reading a story about a dwarf or an orc, there's a little bit you can see of yourselves within, and then put yourself in those positions. In addition to us having our wizards and dragons and gods.
Professor Tolkien called that applicability, as opposed to allegory, which he despised.
Yeah.
The idea behind that as a literary conceit, or perhaps a philosophy, is that in one, the allegorical-driven narrative puts the author in complete control of what messages or subtext or understood themes and meanings are meant to be there, and it's forced in a one-way street to the audience.
Right.
With what Professor Tolkien called applicability, he believed, and he was very disciplined about it when he wrote all these stories of Middle-earth. He thought the best way for the audience to digest whatever themes and import was to leave it to them to decide.
Yes.
He realized
That's
that
great.
2 generations down the line, they might see something applicable to their own socio-political situation in their own way that he didn't think of in the 1950s when The Lord of the Rings was published.
Sure.
And perhaps that's the slant where you're going towards as well.
That's the goal, and that's I think
It's a kind of a generous way for the author to say, here's the other levels of what the story is, you find it
yes.
within your own time.
Absolutely. In addition to, and the fun thing about comics also is you can plant little Easter eggs for people to find within, not just within the words, but within the panels of art. That if you might miss on the first read, there's a symbol here, and how is that? Oh, there's a symbol there, and how do they connect? And
Sure.
you have that opportunity more and more and more.
I love it when Kubrick and other filmmakers
Oh, yeah.
deliberately put symbols and things in the background for you to pick up on.
Yeah. Kubrick.
Oh yeah, Kubrick especially, if anyone else. But one of the reasons why Professor Tolkien had such a literary disagreement with his buddy C.S. Lewis was because Narnia was so specifically allegorical.
Yes, it was very heavy-handed.
Aslan equals Jesus Christ, and that there's an ideology that's really specific.
Like Superman.
Zack Snyder gave us boatfuls of Jesus analogy in Man of Steel. They're everywhere, especially in the church scenes with the lights, with the stained glass behind him. The whole thing.
Yeah.
But other authors will not say Aslan equals blank. Instead of taking that equation and forcing it down the audience's throat, you can let them get some layers out of it on their own. I do appreciate that, but it's much harder to create. It's much harder to do.
I think it's a little bit more soul bearing. You know, when you you know, for me, I think, you know, creating these characters, I think, you know, when you're at your most vulnerable, you want to impart part of yourself into your creations, and when you're at your most raw and honest, and if you manage to hit some clever sentences within those moments, those magical moments, then there's an opportunity for a real emotional connection with a reader. You know, sometimes it's, you know, it doesn't always work, and sometimes there are a few misses. You know, some reviewers have said I, you know, bit up my own arse, bit obnoxious, whatever, which is great. I am, thank you. But I think it gives that reader that opportunity to connect on a constant level and come back and draw from, like Alan Moore. I mean, who is the master at it in the comics.
Yes,
comics
he is.
realm.
Alan Moore.
You really feel, you know, a real visceral connection. You know, you know, my folks were, you know, like saying, "Oh, you're into comic books." It's just words and art, and it's essentially kids' books growing up. And well, first off, kids' books, you do have real emotional connections when you're a child, and how do you keep that same connectivity going as you get older and older?
I can't even have conversations with people who are dismissive, outright, of comic books as an art form.
Right.
I take the Scott McCloud position. I'm a staunch, you know, apologist for illustrated fiction and the power of comic books as a medium, big time. And when people can be and are often still dismissive of, oh, you're reading a book about furry-footed hobbits, or people were dismissive of Richard Adams when Watership Down came out. I got into almost a fist fight.
Oh, yeah.
My English teacher in high school, who you would have thought would be one of the first people to give me a beautiful book like Watership Down and say, read this, absorb it, love it. The same way that she made me digest Orwell's Animal Farm, which is not far of a stretch in that way of that narrative.
Right.
For her to say, you're reading a book about bunnies. And she kept rolling her eyes and looking at me like, and I said, no, this is Watership Down. This is a freaking amazing story that has powerful messages to who we are and how we relate to each other. And how we govern ourselves, of all things. And she's like, yeah, but I can't even... And I said, have you seen the film? And my English teacher said, I can't bear to watch it. It's about bunny rabbits. And she was so dismissive of it. So when people are like that about your fantasy world that you love, about Starfleet, or the Potterverse, whenever you're up against people who are dismissive, what do you say to someone to say, well, come on now, open up your eyes a bit?
You just need a hug.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, you know,
you need a hug.
You just need a hug. it's you know, it's just not for everybody. I mean, that's, you know, it's.
I know. My partner says if that movie has a spaceship in it, I haven't seen it. Never. So can you imagine dating someone who's never seen Star Wars?
Wow.
Ever?
Wow.
Imagine.
Yeah, that's.
What's that like? What's that
true.
like for me? I can't imagine. What's it like for you growing up not seeing Star Wars? How do you talk to someone
That's kind of
who's so dismissive of your science fiction because of what it is?
Right.
I bump into people who are dismissive of Miyazaki all the time.
Oh, wow.
And then I start to stamp my feet and huff like an angry horse.
Yeah.
Like, come on now.
Right.
Come on. That's real art.
Yes,
Well, I think the cream rises to the crop.
Yeah.
The world of Asunda,
Yes.
with these characters, these extraordinary characters, and these multi-ethnic and really very layered approaches to their backgrounds and their stories in the Untamed and in Naobi, and I'm so glad to hear you say there's more titles yet to come.
A lot coming out next year.
That you're gonna be up against. The more popular you get, you're going to be up against it.
Yes,
Sebastian, I'm telling you.
It's funny actually you say that, because a lot of.
What are you going to say in defense of yourself?
Some of the producers, you know, guys that I work with, they say you know, which is a big compliment. You've created really high standards for yourself.
Yes.
How are you going to continue to match it with every title you put out? Can you know? I mean, the Untamed took us many years to finish. many years to finish this book. So
Well, if you get a monthly title going, you're not going to get that luxury
Well,
of getting years to finish. You're going to have a book every month.
but you know, it's such a good point, because I think even though we'll have books coming out on a more consistent basis, the world has already been built.
Good.
And a lot of the
Very good.
stories, you know, we take kind of, I think, a Pixar approach. If we ever get to a place where we're just churning, I mean, even then I can't really see it on a Marvel or a DC level. But if we have a good few titles each year, and the team grows at a kind of an in sync kind of way with team to creation,
Yes.
creators to creation,
Yes.
we'll be okay.
That's a great
But-
Pixar methodology. Yeah.
But we won't release something until we feel it's kind of baked. You know,
Fully done. Yeah.
we
fully baked.
like
Yeah.
you know, Naobi. I know what's going to happen by an issue 4. You know,
Yeah.
and Dusu, when it's coming out, is you can get it online already, but that's already done. It's finished. So when it
Yes.
hits stores, I don't have to worry about panic deadlines. Erathune, when it comes out, the story's done. First 2 issues of 4 issues are done.
That's good.
So I'm.
Well,
It's a scary and exciting place to be.
it is. It's a new business model
It
that you're gonna be up against,
Yes.
which I'm excited for you
Thank you,
also.
yeah.
But I mean, comparing Professor Tolkien and the way that he took, you know, there's still an argument among people, on scholars, that he took him between 15 to 17 years to completely write The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And a bit longer, that time gets argued about because of the length of time he did maps.
Right.
He drew himself.
Right.
And appendices.
Right.
And then character alphabet sets.
Right.
And then Shire calendars.
Yes.
And then he went on and on and on.
Right.
And his publisher was like, oh, please,
Right,
me,
right.
please, come on.
Sure.
They were like, Ronald or
Yeah.
John, whoever, it depends upon who knew him.
Right.
But Professor Tolkien, come on, we want to publish this damn thing.
Sure.
But he took so many years to get that finished.
To be honest, though, I know a lot of creators in music and film and books
Yeah.
and so on, and it is the one of the banes of an artist, of any artist. They don't want to release their work until they feel like it's primo.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
You know, I know it's a complete sidetrack, but I look at Marvin Gaye or the Beatles, right? And you witness them from being pop artists
Yes.
into being artists, into being true creators. You know, Marvin Gaye was a crooner and wanted to always be a Frank Sinatra type, and then ended up becoming writing what's going on and doing the most amazing political social record. But he was in the spotlight along his journey. Most artists always have that struggle. Well, I don't know who I am yet. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to release this yet. Maybe I've taken 5 years to create this. I've changed in those 5 years. Right, I want to put this out now. Now I'll move on to this. But then all of a sudden, I'm 42 now, and it's fine. It's taken me a long time to get this stuff out. You know,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of my perspectives and views have changed. So going back to the Untamed, it's finally come out. It's going, wow, you know, that's. I'm glad it's coming out now, and I've done some edits and whatnot. But me doing that when I was 20, I couldn't have done that.
Yes.
You know, so I think.
Can you see yourself with a publishing team and a crack writing team and the kinds of resources gathered around you that you would like?
Yeah.
Can you see yourself facing a monthly deadline?
Yeah.
In the demands of the publishing world?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah?
I can. You know, I think with novel writers, they have the luxury of taking their time.
You sure do.
Yet, at the same token, that was part of the reason I found it stranger with the guys, Joshua and Daryl and the guys, is you finally have an opportunity to tune in on a monthly basis,
Yeah.
where, you know, you read David Gemmell or Raimi Feist or whoever it is, you have to wait how long to get their next novel, and then you're starving for it, so you consume it in a couple of days.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait now a few more years before I can read all about my favorite character. And if we have the opportunity to have a Batman or a Superman or a Wolverine character that you can experience on even if it's not monthly, but it's a bi-monthly basis, then you can always tune in with your favorite character.
I think that the DC, I may get buried alive by fans online for saying this, but I think that the DC universe and in many ways the Marvel universe were not built and structured the way that you deliberately worked on Asunda, the universe of Asunda, because in that world, they just had another title that came out. There was Iron Man, and then Mr. Stan Lee was over working with the other artists and did another book. There was Captain America, and then they put there, and then another, and then they ended up just being loosely put together and in the same world. I mean, everybody knew that Metropolis and Gotham City were supposed to be New York, but now, after a length of time, and at some point in hindsight, they were like, oh, let's revisit this and make sure that we distinctly say Gotham City and Metropolis are Chicago and New York.
Right.
Different, just so that we know they're different.
Well, I think that you got to look at the creators, especially the Jack Kirby, who's just one of probably the king of comics, Jack King Kirby. These are guys that, like you were saying about Professor Tolkien's world, pertain to him and his universe.
Mm-hmm.
I think the New Yorkers that created these amazing superheroes kept their heroes within their scope.
Yes.
My mum always says, write what you know.
Yes.
I know fantasy,
Yes.
and I know moral dilemmas and being a bit of a sinner. So that's painting what I know into these worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And being a fantasy fan, knowing that my world isn't, this myopic kind of one town, it's or one city or even one country. I have to paint with broad brushstrokes and fine brushstrokes multiple cities and multiple towns. And my heroes, I always thought as a kid growing up in England, going, how come there's only Captain Britain from England? We've got one hero and he's Captain Britain. And that's it. Where are the other superheroes? Oh, there's one from Japan. There's one from Africa. Only one. Africa's kind of big.
Yeah, Africa's kind of big.
Kind of sizable.
That's another conversation, because I like exploring stories that come from other cultures, and that's one of the reasons why I've been such an anime fan.
Yeah.
Because I suppose the Japanese really have such a weird and wonderful, different way of looking at storytelling.
Yeah.
And they have a different way of presenting storytelling.
Very cinematic.
Love it. I love what I'm getting. But to explore African comic books and African comic book heroes, I could only point to a small handful of American comics that may or may not feature characters that may be of African origin, but they're fictional nations that don't really exist in Africa.
Right.
So there's such a dearth there.
Yeah.
And enter Naobi.
Yeah.
As part of that, filling a need.
Filling it, much much deserved need. And look, it always seems to stem from owners of companies.
Yes.
And owners of companies tend to be white and male. And it's a lot of always a general boysy club, with any type of business. And I think there's often it goes hand in hand with structural racism to greed, and sometimes they do go very hand in hand. It's always that thought: is it commercial? Who's paying the money? Who's buying comic books? What? So it's this quick jump to all these assumptions. To the only people that will buy a comic book is the white male, and I think you look at the state that the state of the landscape of any type of art. It's a very broad a broad thing. in America, they say the Latin market and then the black market is actually the biggest consumers of entertainment.
Yes.
And probably for the escapism, for escaping the hardships.
You don't mean the black market meaning underground market. You mean
No, I'm talking African
the
American.
black audience.
The black audience, the Latin audience.
Yeah.
Is the biggest consumers of media, and it always just astounds me how that where are the heroes? Where in fiction, in comics, and then sometimes you get companies that go, I know what we're going to do, and maybe some people think this is the same with Naobi, which is just bullshit. I could tell you that now, because it's been in my heart for so many years. It's this. It's Black History Month. We're gonna quickly whip up a couple of comic books with some black guys in it, and so it goes from the owners to the creators, and who are the creators telling the stories?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a more diverse range of creators,
some of the best comics artists that I know are black. Tony Akins, who started with Kamiko,
Right.
and Kamiko was the independent publisher that started just as small and just as innocuous as any other small publishing house. But Kamiko picked up Matt Wagner's Grendel,
Sure,
which
Matt
became
Wagner's great.
Matt Wagner has, and from that point forward, Grendel, and he created Mage, and Matt Wagner became a household name.
Sure.
Sandman Mystery Theater, not to mention the other titles he's done in the DC universe, and also on behalf of Neil Gaiman, entering into the Sandman universe, of
Sure,
course.
yeah.
But
Christopher Priest,
but,
is
yeah.
some great. I mean,
But I'm sorry. I meant to say that I've known a man named Tony Akins who started at a very small publishing house and now works for DC with Brian Azzarello, multiple Eisner-winning Brian Azzarello, and the other wonderful fellow has been working for Seth MacFarlane's team on Family Guy and American Dad for years, and he's a student here at Meltdown Comics
Oh, yeah,
at their
that's great.
Meltdown University.
Oh, that's great.
And because he's transitioning from television animation to comics.
Yeah.
And it's some of the most greatest and talented
Yeah.
young, black men now finding positions
And
in the industry of
and
comics.
And then where are the women?
And that's the next question. My first thought comes to Noelle Stevenson, known as Ginger Hayes, who's created Lumberjanes, a very successful book with all girls, all girl power. So what else do I know? I can tell you about Jill. Forgive me. Jill's going to kill me. Jill Thompson, married to Brian Azzarello.
Okay.
Jill Thompson, who did Black Orchid
Okay.
for Neil Gaiman.
Oh, yeah,
And
great.
she's done The Little Endless, like little young, tiny kids versions of Neil Gaiman's Endless. So, there's a small finger
Right, exactly.
count of female creators.
Right.
I'm coming up with less than 5 off the top of my head.
Right.
Jill Thompson, Colleen Doran, who did Orbiter, and
But you're within the geek
yeah, here I am. I tell you, Wendy
You-
Peeney, Richard and his wife Wendy.
So you're within the geek
ElfQuest.
sphere. So who outside of the geek sphere is very little knowledge, very little knowing.
But still, even just off the
and
top of
even
my head, I
even
can't get more
within-
than 5
right,
names.
Right, exactly.
That's a shame.
Yeah, well, we were told that Naobi is the first ever. I posed this question to the guys at Geek and Sundry. Do you last week, which was, I think we're the first ever nationally distributed comic book with a black female author, a black female artist, and a black female protagonist in the history of comics.
Wow.
And that's a pretty telling.
You have broken every glass ceiling right there.
It's pretty telling. It's a pretty sad. It's a pretty sad, sad state, thing to. It's great to to do these things, but it's pretty sad that it's. And why is it us? Why hasn't it been these behemoth juggernaut corporations that have been around for a long time? And then it just comes back to that original thoughts.
And it comes back to why can't Idris Elba be a black 007?
Right.
Well, I come right back to that. Thinking this.
I would prefer him to be 006. I think a lot of times also there's too much. I don't want to say overcompensation, but let's be too PC, or let's appease this and appease this and blah blah blah. When it's rather than it's like, we need a black guy in Fantastic Four. Because let's get the piece. Let's stick a black guy. It's pandering, and anybody with any sense knows and feels it's pandering. So you lose your white audience, your black audience, and so on. I always think it's funny when people go, "Oh my God, a black Fantastic Four," I think it's kind of funny because
Yeah.
of so much racism that's gone on. But it's create characters, nurture original characters that have their own sense of self. It's not like, oh great, who am I today? Yeah, I'm Johnny Storm, I guess. I'm the Kingpin in this crappy Daredevil movie. All right, I guess. You know, it's you know, I'm 007. Well, that's a bit different. 007 is kind of the man, but I would prefer it to be 006 and create a real great identity for 006 to be his own sense of person.
To be his own man,
Yeah.
right? Okay, right. This is interesting. Interesting how conversations in our own storytelling, our own artistic pursuits, still driven and slanted by racial, the race
Sure.
card or the identity of race,
Mhm.
still such a prevalent part of our lives,
Always will be.
and
There always will be. I mean, you look at today's
still-
society. I mean, you know where we're at. I mean, obviously, you know, it's taking a darker turn in the conversation, but we look at today's reality and people's perspectives are so insular within their own realm, within their own village, with what their folks have told them, what they've heard at church, what they've heard at their school, or they're at town, or from their friend or their cousin. And then they go onto the internet, and it's somebody else's very polar opposite perspective, and then the two clash in the most vitriolic way. You know, I mean, you know, I'm going to paraphrase this, but Malcolm X had a great quote, which was, "Don't be in such a hurry to condemn those who don't think like you do or act like you do,
Yeah.
because there was a time you don't think or act like you do now."
yes,
So always be open to change within, that you might actually change yourself.
it took Disney how long to get a black princess, an African American princess?
Yeah.
It took how many decades?
And I talked to the head guy at Disney who was in charge of.
We're referring to Princess and the Frog, of course.
Right,
Yeah.
and he said they originally wanted her. There was a reason why she's hardly in the film. When you think about it,
Yeah.
and they originally wanted a white guy to be the prince, and they went back and forth, and finally settled on someone that looks a bit more like me, a bit more Moroccan or mixed.
Yeah.
But he couldn't.
He was North African,
But he couldn't be.
perhaps, but
Maybe.
he couldn't be black as well.
Yeah.
I had a suspicion that he was a light-skinned Caribbean.
Right.
I wasn't sure.
And she's light skinned too. You know,
Mm.
it's
It's interesting to me. It's still,
it's just the reality of life. I mean, it's when
Well-
people talk of this crap, they would say, "I don't see color." Of course you do. It's okay. And I think there's too much overcompensation with this fear of, "I don't see color." Yes, you do. It's the first thing you see, and it's okay. Embrace our differences with love and with like exploration. I mean, we live in a time where we, you know, especially in America and Western countries, where you go, I can experience other culture.
Mhm.
I don't have to. It doesn't have to be. We're all the same. No, we're not. Thank goodness we're not. We don't dress the same. We don't eat the same. We don't dance the same. We don't shag the same. We don't smell the same. It's okay. That's a good thing. God, gee, you know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah.
too much of this, you know, this thought of like, I think it's fear of people not wanting to be perceived as racist. So there's this quick jump to, you know, otherwise, you know, why would we even have different fantasy cultures? You know, you might as well say, let's apply the same stuff. Yeah, dwarves and elves are the same.
Hmm.
Or a guy from Gondor and a guy from, different European
Indeed.
parts. They're the same. Of course, you know, Rohan. Of course, they're not. No one is. So, and that's a good thing. Embrace it.
The Tolkien fans, or fans of Peter Jackson's adaptations, of which there are very many on this program, took note that the first time any black people appeared in the Middle-earth films was in Lake Town, in the second Hobbit film, The Desolation of Smaug. The very first time you see any ethnicities that are obviously not Eurocentric
Right.
or very Anglo-centric, which is where we usually are in
Right.
that world of Middle-earth.
Right.
And then the filmmakers started justifying it and talking about it
Right.
on the behind-the-scenes disc to
I
explain
didn't see that.
why there were different cultures and different ethnicities.
Because they were in a lake
in-
and maybe it was a port area.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. It was a place of commerce and trade
Sure.
up and down the river across the nearby regions. But it's funny to me the filmmakers had to stop and explain the presence
Right.
of this is so interesting to me
Right.
because
But it makes people feel uncomfortable even talking about it.
let me get all Charlie Rose with you for a
Right.
moment. Are we as human beings helpless to this response to other people who are different from us?
Yeah, of
This
course.
is just human nature.
It is. Everything is fear-mongering, fear and control.
Mhm.
You know, the separation, you know, is and domination. I think it's inherent in man too. You know, you see another guy as a kid. Can you beat him up? Can you outthink him? Can you tennis racket him? Can you? And then you go from there. Can my town beat my school beat your school? Can my town beat your town? Can my south of my country beat the north of your country? Can my country beat your country? I think it's a very kind of
I see.
unfortunate thing.
And you can elevate that to race. Can my race beat your race?
Without question.
Or subdue, or
oppress.
yeah.
And continue to.
Yes.
Continue to. In whether it's through. Yeah, I mean, you could look at when Primonoff. You know, you can look at. It doesn't have to necessarily be with force. It could be with deviousness. It could be online. It could be, and so on. I mean, to that state, and I mean, again, it's tough for me because I'm a huge Tolkien fan. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fanatic, and I'll be watching them again with my kid over the holidays. And
there's more to watch.
Yeah.
The extended edition of the Battle of the Five Armies
Right.
just came out today.
Oh, it
in
did
North
today?
America. Yes,
Oh,
today.
wow, okay.
We'll get back to that in a moment.
Okay, cool.
I know the kids in the audience are chomping at the bit.
That's cool.
We'll get to that in a bit. But
it get back to Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
They'll say the first brown-looking people were the Uruk-hai. That was a big fail. You're going to be, okay, so the orcs in the Lord of the Rings films were essentially they were brown-skinned and they had dreadlocks.
the way they're presented in the film, they do
Yeah.
look like they have dreads.
Yeah.
Or Lurtz, at least one of them does.
Yeah, it's a little, and not all of them. Sure, there were white orcs and so on, but
Yeah.
I think Warhammer was smart, and some of the other green.
Yeah.
Let's you be very, very careful when you're talking about major, not from a moral standpoint, from also from a business standpoint. That's not how do you not alienate. Let's alienate this group of people.
Yes. Yes.
In one fell swoop. I mean, look at this. I mean, and I have, I've been told by my team I always got to be careful because I'm in the industry. But this new film, what is it? Gods of Egypt.
I haven't heard of this.
The
What is
gods of Egypt. The gods of Egypt are Gerard Butler, I think, is Set or Horus.
Gerard Butler?
Yeah, because he looks like he's.
He looks Egyptian to me. Yeah, that would be my first casting.
Right.
Yes.
And then the Scandinavian actor who's great in Game of Thrones, Nikolai something.
Oh, yes.
Kostow something.
Yes.
Jamie Lannister.
Jamie, who plays Jamie Lannister.
Jamie
yes.
Lannister. He's also a god of Egypt. Because he looks black, right? I mean,
He looks totally North African. That's
Yeah.
exactly the genotype I would think of.
Yeah. So.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean.
That's funny.
And the trouble
Wow.
is nowadays, like, people don't read like they used to. Most young kids that will grow up watching the other one that came out that Ridley Scott did with Christian Bale was Moses, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's
Oh,
from-
that was Christian Bale was Moses. That was called Noah.
no, that was
That was
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe starring as Noah.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, you're talking about Ridley Scott's Gods and Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, Exodus.
Exodus. Right.
Exodus, Gods and Kings.
Right.
Exodus. Yes.
And then the response I heard from it, I remember reading from him, is like, well, there aren't. It's tough making a movie, and if we had more black actors, it would be considered a black film, or something. Maybe I'm paraphrasing. It wasn't him that said that, but he
Right.
did say it would be more difficult to get funding for the film, and so it just all comes back to the dollar. And when you're rewriting history,
Mhm.
because when you think, depending on your religious beliefs, the Bible, the Quran, or scriptures that have been written, that is a form of media.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, and form to some people. And then
Yeah.
you've got TV and movies. And if you've got movies now representing Africans by white actors today,
Uh-huh.
you're rewriting history.
There have been so many awful moments in Hollywood films where they've cast the wrong white man to play.
Anonymous said, "Oh, F off, orcs are dark-skinned." Yeah, all right, not in my world.
Oh, orcs are dark skinned? Well, actually, orcs can be the way they're depicted in Professor Tolkien's books
Yeah.
is somehow different from the variety of ways that Peter Jackson portrays them in the films. So perhaps we could narrow down that conversation. Gothmog, the lieutenant of Minas Morgul, Gothmog is pink. When
Right.
he shows up in Return of the King, he's pink.
Right.
Some of the other orcs that are chasing Merry and Pippin into the Fangorn Forest,
Mhm.
they have a light, pasty, white, bluish skin.
Mhm.
But then again, that might be the way they're lit, or the way those light. The Uruk-hai tend to have, from everything you see in the films, dark red, dark brown, reddish brown,
Mhm.
blackish skin, and these weird-shaped skulls that had a little bit of a shape, a point to them.
Mhm.
Other times we look at our buddy Azog from the Hobbit films. Well, he was an albino, evidently.
I've got a fun story about that. I think I mentioned that last time.
But in,
So
in
the-
Professor Tolkien's world, they were just orcs and goblins, and I don't think there was.
there were some descriptions. I can't remember exactly.
But I figured that they had black skin like tar, like some unnatural black.
Right.
Not like any human being would ever have black skin, which is usually dark brown. But I always thought that orcs looked like pitch, like tar. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
do.
because that made the evil of them
But that's
even more
also- but-
black. That blackness was not race. When I read it as a 12-year-old kid,
Yeah.
I didn't think of them as black in a racial term. I thought them as looking as black as this microphone, something that looked unnatural, like tar.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do. But me as a kid growing up, I thought it sucked.
Yeah.
It did. To me, that sucked. Like,
Yeah.
You know, and if it's black like tar, I know beautiful black people that have jet black, blue black skin. You know, so it just you
Mhm.
just why not go green? It's safer.
Go green.
Um,
it's safer.
This is the original albino orc, because he was not albino in the books. I think I mentioned this a little
Oh,
bit
yes.
in the
That's right.
in the last interview there. So I created this character, Kersheg the Mute. I don't know, long time ago.
Yeah.
And Hyung from The Last of Us video game, with Daryl, my art director, he designed it and Hyung painted it beautifully. So I don't know if you guys can see that. But we met with Way to Workshop in 2009 and showed them this orc. And then I saw The Hobbit in 2012 and thought, that's a...
Oh, who
That's a-
took that idea?
And
Yeah.
again,
Where'd that idea come from?
It could have been just a massive coincidence, and sometimes things I think are, kismet or osmosis.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm not gonna, cast any assumptions, but it was interesting because we have the bracer down here, and
Yeah.
the potential one
His
on.
gauntlet, the
Mhm.
crazy gauntlets.
Yeah. So anyway, there's your original albino orc,
There you go.
Kersheg the Mute by Hyung Tech Nam and Daryl May. In the Untamed.
The Untamed.
Do you think both the main orcs in The Hobbit were white? Azog and Bald.
Azog and his son Bald.
Balg, yeah.
Do you think part of that was influenced by the reaction in Lord of the Rings? Like the only black people.
It could have been. It
Well,
could-
there's a
It
specific.
could have been because of this.
It could. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, going albino. I mean, I remember who was the orc who looked very pig-like. I mean, I actually much prefer the orcs as far in
Pig-like? Oh, that might have been Gothmog in
Goth-
Return
was
of the
that
King.
Yes.
But his face looked like half vomit slush.
Yes, that was amazing.
Yeah,
That was
The
amazing.
prosthetics were way better than any CG you could
Yeah,
get.
that's what I was going to get to.
Yeah.
Whenever
He did look very pig-like.
That's what I preferred about Lord of the Rings in general, was the not as much CG.
Mm-hmm.
I found it more kind of grounded and gritty.
Yeah.
I could smell it from the screen a little bit more.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Professor Tolkien's attitude towards race was addressed very clearly in the book, and it was completely put into the films. Samwise and Frodo bump into the Harathrim, who are coming up from the Harad, and they get attacked by Faramir and the Rangers in Ithilien, and they take down all those guys and the Oliphant, and Sam comes face to face with a young lad who is a Harad lad, and he's played in the films by a Maori actor, and so you have a complete obvious difference in genotype and race depicted right there. And Professor Tolkien gives Samwise a monologue where he thinks to himself and looking at the dead enemy in front of him, wouldn't this guy rather have stayed at home and been with his family and his children and lived his life in peace? What kind of lies were told to this young man to make him so fearful, or to, to recruit him into ISIS, which is what, Sauron was doing. Sauron in Mordor was ISIS, recruiting young men and soldiers from the Harad countries and from the Easterlings. The Easterlings who had their own genotype, and they were presented as an Asian genotype.
Right.
So you get, and Professor Tolkien, and in the movie, Faramir, the character played by David Wenham, he verbalizes the monologue that Sam had internally in the book. It was Sam's internal thoughts on the page, but Faramir has those words extrapolated, explicit. And Faramir says, would he just have preferred to stay at home and live his life in peace and comfort and pursue his own ends without being driven to this war, to this madness? And I'm paraphrasing way the hell out of it, but that's Professor Tolkien's comment on how different nationalities who are driven by fearful ideology that takes them out from their homes to combat other people.
I think we all are.
Very adroit observation.
Yeah, it is.
Indeed.
But I think we all are.
Yeah.
We're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of being attacked. We're afraid of what could happen to our own safety and security. And it's when you're creating universes and fantasy and science fiction, how do you address those types of things? Is it because when you see them on TV or in movies or you read the books, if you don't address it in a very kind of visceral, emotional connecting way, it feels very surface. And it's like, I'm just watching something explode and some cool designs, and doesn't feel personal. But when you get personal, then you're going to have a very gutty reaction, and then some people are going to not like it, and some people are going to go, yes, I'm with you, and I hate you, because you're addressing those same kind of issues.
Haters be hating.
It's true.
You get an air of legitimacy as soon as you get some haters online. That certainly does give you an air of legitimacy, doesn't it? I think. That's just me.
Yeah, I like that. Fear was a driving force for Frodo. Take the ring out of the shower. Take it, Gandalf. I'm giving it to you. Yeah, exactly. It's very true.
And Viggo's complaint as well.
Yeah.
It has been a. Yeah, it has been it's been a long road to get all of those Middle-earth films out the door. Well, so today we have to acknowledge, before we close out our 90-minute program, we have to acknowledge again, thank you Warner Brothers Home Video, and thank you Peter Jackson and all the team working down there. They finally put the button on a 6-film saga.
It's amazing.
And that's it.
Amazing.
And the Battle of the Five Armies is now out today on high-definition Blu-ray in Region 1, North America and Canada. The extended edition, finally in our hands. And I hear that there's some very touching, emotional farewell material on the appendix, on the appendices disc. And I'm excited to see this. I don't have a copy yet. Well, let's go down to Amoeba Music. After we shut down the show, let's go down Sunset Boulevard and go to Amoeba and get our copies. But what do you think of the next future steps for Tolkien fandom?
Wow. I mean, there's such an opportunity. I mean, when you think of Game of Thrones, you think of the opportunities that the show producers can take, or is taking liberties within some of the characters. It's, I mean, obviously there's the Silmarillion. There are amazing characters within that book. But finding the right producers and directors to create new stories for some of these amazing characters, and that's what we talked about, the difference between comics and novels is, when you read a novel, you become that. I mean, that really is it. And then if somebody takes your precious character from a novel and I'm going to make them into a movie or a TV show, and it doesn't necessarily fit within a framework, it's dangerous because there's already a pre-built estate and a pre-built franchise, and you don't want to suddenly like do something stupid with Frodo or
Well, the Silmarillion doesn't have any rights out to the world. The Professor Tolkien's estate will not release the rights at the time of this recording. So yeah, there absolutely no way that the Silmarillion will ever be touched.
Wow.
As long as the estate continues its very draconian stance. I had to put in a dragon reference somewhere in this show, and there it was. But no, their stance is to never ever let the Silmarillion be adapted by anybody. And Professor Tolkien's son, Christopher, is very anti Peter Jackson films.
Is he?
Very much so. Very much so. But, and looking at what you just mentioned, Mr. George R.R. Martin and the Westeros saga, the ongoing Song of Ice and Fire.
Sure.
He's never going to finish that damn thing.
Right.
Another year, another delay. And so the showrunners of the HBO show are going to be up against a serious wall in what they're going to go with the rest of that story, because Martin's nowhere near finishing. But do you think that the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit may reappear in the next generation? Now that they're all done by Peter Jackson's hand, but are we looking at another appearance maybe in the next generation in a whole new way? Maybe puppets, maybe animation again, maybe interactive
you have
VR, maybe some kind of VR.
You have video games.
Yes.
And those are the, great, and the MMORPG, type worlds, and that's...
Middle-earth Online is still very active.
Right.
And, well, I wonder...
That was the first role-playing game I played was Middle-earth role-playing.
Yes.
The tabletop game.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's
a good
huge
one.
fan of that, and then I went from that to Rollmaster. Those were my two big game systems.
I love it. It takes a gamer to build a world. It takes the instincts of a gamer. So you would say, if you're beginning advice to someone who's building a world, a map is required.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Gotta have a map.
Gotta have a map.
Gotta have a map.
Gotta know where you're going, where you're from.
I mean, back when L. Frank Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz, he didn't have any maps of Oz. There were no maps. But Professor Tolkien, who published The Hobbit in the exact same year as The Wizard of Oz in 1937, thank you, Professor Tolkien knew he needed a map. Drew it himself. Have you got maps inside the Untamed?
I do.
This beautiful collected volume. Remind the folks at home, please, where this is available. As we close out our show, we want to. Oh, this is so great! Oh, this is great.
We have a bunch of lots of little maps within the big world. But this is this is one of many versions.
This is so cool, and more detail to be added.
No, there's tons of detail, just not on this one. But the Untamed, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it. You can download it to your iBooks and Kindle and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And you should be able to order it from any comic shop now. And the Untamed, just to let you know, is a story about a bad man who is stuck in purgatory. And after 10 years, the devil comes to him and says, "I will give you 7 days to reap the 7 souls that murdered you and your family." He says, "Sign me up."
The ultimate outward twisting of the Faustian deal. The ultimate outward reinvention of the Faustian deal. I love it. And you have to imagine the delicious Sean Bean and all of his Beanisms. The way he delivers those gravelly lines. Bring it, Sean.
Yeah, he's great.
Rob Stark. Not Rob Stark.
Ned.
I meant to say Ned. Eddard, right?
Eddard. Dead Ned.
Eddard.
Yeah.
Dead Eddard. Nickname Ned.
Yeah.
Do you have a nickname? Seb?
Seb. Yeah, Seb.
Was I being too forward earlier?
No, you're good. You're good. Absolutely. Seb's a lot more common when I'm in England.
We're all friends here.
Yeah.
We're all friends here. Ladies and gentlemen, Sebastian A. Jones, right here on our show, Torn Tuesday, sharing with us wonderful things from his very, very excited, bubbling over with excitement.
And I forgot.
His publishing house, Stranger Comics.
This is coming out next year.
Oh, who's this?
This is Morkamoa.
Morka Moa.
There's one of our big bad orcs there. There's
Oh, cool.
baby Naobi.
That's baby Naobi?
Uh-huh.
Oh, how cool.
There's
So cool.
Xiaopo, our mermen, and these are some Galamren from the western sands of Ujoa. So yeah, that's coming out next year.
Oh, this is so cool. Super cool. Everywhere you look, Stranger
Thanks,
Comics
man.
is on the cusp of breaking out. Huge.
I want to see that world, not Pandora.
Yeah, I don't want to see any more of Pandora.
Oh,
I
if
don't
you-
know
yeah, if
why he's making those films.
Thanks a lot, guys. And if you guys want to check out the Untamed trailer, just go to YouTube and type in Stranger Comics The Untamed. There's a few animatics on there. Look for the one that's kind of got a bluish kind of background. The other one is actually a motion comic from the first issue. So there's a few you'll see, but that's the one you want to see. Maybe type in Sean Bean 2, you'll probably find it.
And can they follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, you can follow me Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Stranger Comics. At
Mhm.
Stranger Comics.
At Stranger Comics on all of those other media streams, and also at Sebastian A. Jones.
That's true.
Not to be confused with regular Sebastian Jones, who's just a regular other person you'll find on IMDb who produced TV shows here in America
Yeah.
for a number of years.
Right.
But that's different. That's why you got the A.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
did.
you knew that. You knew that
I
guy was
did.
out there?
Yeah, I did.
So-
I was like, really?
Yeah.
I've got to be the obnoxious dude to have the middle initial.
Middle initial.
I was like, I was either going to go Seb Jones, but it didn't sound like,
I like that. I like Seb Jones.
Seb Jones.
But why did George Martin have to put the RR in there? Because it was like J
I
RR
know. Yeah.
Tolkien. I asked him that once.
Did you?
I had an interview, a very
that's
brief
right.
interview. I went to San Diego Comic-Con and I asked George R.R. Martin to his face.
Because he said the Beatles producer, George Martin.
I said, yeah, why is it you put RR? Did your publisher say that's what you needed to do? And he said, yeah, the publisher thought that was a rather needful thing. And because you were working in the realm of J.R.R. Tolkien,
Right.
and he's like, yeah, well, not so much that, but just to differentiate George Martin from every other George Martin in the world. So A. Sebastian A.
yeah.
Jones. The world is strange and full of wonderment and full of riches and creative powerhouses like this guy. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to have you on the
Thank
show.
Thank you.
It's a
Thanks for having me
fantastic time for Stranger Comics, and thank you for giving so much thoughtfulness. I'm going to say this ahead of time, even before I finish reading the whole damn thing. Thank you for giving so much thoughtfulness to your world building.
Thank you.
It is appreciated
Thank
by
you.
this geek and this whole community.
Thank you.
Well done, sir.
Yes.
All right. Good show.
Thank
Thanks also, a special shout out to our producer from theonering.net, Mr. Justin Sewell. He's usually on stage with me, but now he's back there behind the scenes doing some technical jiggery pokery. Thanks for making a great show happen, everybody. Follow us on all of our social media streams, The One Ring Net, and you can follow me at QuickBeam2000. This is Clifford Broadway, over and out. And before I go, I'm gonna lose the top half of my head with my green hat. Good night, everybody. Great show.